Men ready for commitment always do this, and we're going to share 5 things additionally that they do to demonstrate that they want a commitment. So, what makes a man suddenly commit? Is there a secret? I think women tend to be more conditioned to commitment, and men on some level seek freedom. But there's a deeper truth in play, and that's what I want to explore with everybody today. The reality is dating over 45 years old, and since many of you who follow my channel know, I'm a midlife dating and relationship coach. And I say midlife is after baby making years and before retirement. So roughly a population between the ages of 42 and 69. Is dating at this stage is radically different than those that are in their 20s and 30s. Kids, it's funny, I'm saying kids in their 20s and 30s. They're oftentimes seeking relationships where they might eventually make babies and raise a family, whereas many of us in the over 45 category, roughly 75% of singles in the dating marketplace are divorced. And so for divorced people, not only is there the emotional effects of divorce, many people after they hit that midlife point, that midlife crisis point, emerges collective wounds, the wounds of childhood, the wounds of maybe going through a traumatic divorce. And because of that, we're dealing with a completely different population from the vantage point of relationship readiness. Bump, 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 relationship readiness. We're going to look at how that is today, or how that evolves today, particularly for those of us folks that are over 45 years old. But we have to examine, how do people meet in the dating marketplace today? You see, it's radically different than it was 50, 60, 100 years ago. 50, 60, 100 years ago, your primary place of meeting someone was maybe your school of origin, or maybe your college, maybe your professional capacity at work, maybe it was church, maybe you got fixed up by friends, maybe you actually knew the person because you grew up with them. Well, certainly times have changed. In the last 20 years, do you know what's taken over? You know what's taken over: online dating sites and social media. It has skyrocketed to the fact that the roughly 65% of all singles are meeting their potential mate through an online connection. And you see, online is a great tool for connecting. I know you complain about it. I know you're frustrated, and for very good reason in many cases. But at the end of the day, it's still a great tool for connecting and meeting people. But it's also a breeding ground for those individuals I mentioned before that are wounded. And because the population of singles over 45s are predominantly wounded on some level, have done little or no healing from their childhood wounds or those adult traumas. They have leaky energy. They need therapy rather than a date or relationship. And sadly, online dating, connecting through our devices, makes it easy to connect with people. Other people are wounded. What's happening is wounded people are talking to one another all day long. And what's fascinating to me? Beside the fact that online dating has created an environment where you could hook up physically rather easily, because now sex is rather easy to obtain. There's no real leap or entry to the barrier to entry is rather low. But the other part of that breeding ground for online dating, and again, I believe it's a great tool for meeting people, but it's a breeding ground to get sucked into the fact that you might become a de facto therapist for a person. Did you hear that? A de facto therapist. I will tell you, a lot of wounded, lonely people are connecting with each other online on a regular basis just to replace what should be addressed with a therapist, a really good coach, somebody from a spiritual perspective. That's what I think they should be doing. That's my should. But humans can do whatever they want. And so what's happened is, instead of seeking genuine improvement in their life, they look for a date or a relationship to fill that hole inside of them. I need you to complete me inside of them. And no wonder many of you feel frustrated. And certainly because of that, you've observed a lot of men who are commitment phobic, who are unavailable for a relationship. But I'm going to give you some clues. If you really, I'm going to encourage you to pay attention to what I'm going to share with you today, because these clues will give you insight as to whether or not a man is relationship ready, or at least he's demonstrating readiness, versus those that are going to treat you like what I call a placeholder. If you haven't seen my chart before, I haven't shown it in a while, the 3 types of people actively dating, and please note the bottom, this is not a fact, it's merely an opinion. I believe roughly 20% of the population are what I call users. They seek short-term gain. They're love bombers, they're players, they're gold diggers. They're entitled, selfish people. They only care about their own needs. That could be more than 20%. I'm just making up these numbers. And roughly 60% of the population are what I call spenders. They seek companionship, connection, and sex. They seek their lives are distracted. They have a fearful attachment style or a needy attachment style. They have a dysfunctional life. And the reason why they're called spenders is they'll spend time with you as a placeholder. But I know many of you are seeking that 20%. And by the way, 20% might be a generous number, but the grower builders, those are the people that genuinely seek relationship. They seek long-term commitment, emotionally grown up, good relationship skills, and they have their act together. Did you hear that? Good relationship skills. You know what the fantasy is? You know, it's funny. Many of you watching this probably think you have good communication skills. Do you know the vast majority of good communication skills, particularly in relationships? You know, there's a couples therapist on HBO. I can't think of her name right now, but the show is called Couples Therapy. And she said, this is what happens when couples come in. Men and women come in, and this is what they do. The man points the finger at the woman, and the woman points the finger at the man. They're not pointing the finger at themselves as being the problem. And particularly when it comes to communication skills, you know, this is something I've been practicing for a decade and a half of good communication skills. And I literally go to school for this every day in the profession that I'm in. Most human beings have poor relationship skills, poor communication skills, and yet they think they're above it all. See, it requires maybe doing a little bit work. And if you're watching this, I'm telling you, you're in it too. We have to, that's the delusion. Everybody thinks they're outside of the rule. And I'm saying you are the rule. Very few people actually have good communication skills to decipher those who are capable of relationships. And I'm sorry to burst your bubble here, but it's going to require being a detective, because we're swimming in a sea of emotional immaturity and poor relationship skills. This is why I teach discernment as my private coaching. And if you want to connect with me, there's links below to schedule a discovery call with me to see if working with a coach is right for you. So we're talking about that 20%, that grower builder. Those men do exist. And do you know what they all have in common? Bump, 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 bump. You know what they all have in common? They want commitment. They want commitment. They don't say, I want a relationship. They say, I want a committed relationship. You see, when you hear from a man or a woman, I want a relationship, you know what that is? Wah, 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 wah. There's no context to it. What does a relationship look like? What does it mean to you? I want you to write that down. Someone write that in the chat box. What does a relationship look like for you? What does commitment mean to you? Like, these are the questions you should be asking someone. And by the way, that grower builder man, that man ready for commitment, he's already done that. He knows exactly he wants a life partner. Now, I recognize that a lot of people in midlife, they're gun shy. They've been burned in their past relationships. They're fearful. They have unresolved issues in their lives. You can weed those out, people out like that, by simply asking some really good questions in the early stage of dating. But Jonathan, I'm just supposed to sit my feminine energy and let men lead because that's what I'm being told to do. I just let men lead because men are such good leaders of relationship. Grower builders are good at it. Most everybody, the 80% of population men, they're not good at it. So here's the thing. You're rolling the dice hoping that the guy you're with is what I call a grower builder, rather than speculating. Why not weed them out by making them jump through a few hoops of asking some direct questions? But Jonathan, I'm told I'm not supposed to do that because that's an interview. Folks, I'm here to tell you, in the dating marketplace, you should be interrogating people. Interrogation. Do you know what interrogation means? It means getting to the truth. Now, here's the thing. You know what? If you've actually ever watched a genuine detective interrogate, they build rapport, they connect with the potential suspect, they ask probing questions, they build some familiarity with that person, and little by little, they drill down. But Jonathan, dating should just be so simple. It's supposed to be a fantasy, just like every book I read and every movie and every Disney I saw. That's the way it should be. Yeah. Magic fairy dust is supposed to come from the ground and make us just magically, we deserve somebody in our life. That's the fantasy, folks. And many of you are living in that fantasy of belief. And I'm here to say that it's time to wake up. You have a choice. You can be empowered, particularly those ladies watching. You can be empowered in your life. I know you don't want to be a detective, but you know what? Learning some skills, by the way, your relationship is probably the most important thing in your life, other than maybe you're making babies, raising children, what I mean, or maybe your professional life. The person you choose will directly affect your life. So learning these skills are rather important. I recommend reading this book. Maybe many of you should be reading this book, How to Be an Adult in Relationships. This way you can spot those people a lot easier. So, what are the 5 things all men do who are commitment ready? Well, let's start with number 1. And by the way, this is in no particular order. He leads with emotional transparency. Someone write this down. He leads with emotional transparency. It's not a mystery with him when you're communicating with him. A commitment-ready man isn't playing it cool. He's not playing the detached game. He'll share his fears, past mistakes, even his shame. Not to trauma dump, not to floodlight, but to invite trust. Think of how you've opened up about your parenting regrets or anxiety. And I'm talking about me. I'm talking about my parenting regrets and my anxiety. That's a way of opening up. Floodlighting is dumping, trauma dumping on a person. I'm not suggesting that. But like little by little, like pouring a glass of water slowly, when he shares his past fears, his mistakes, his shame even, that's designed to build trust with you. That's designed not to suck you in, but to allow you to enter his life. His life. He leads with emotional transparency. It's not this playing it cool game. Oh, and when you ask those poignant questions, he doesn't run away from it. He leans into it. See, that's what a commitment-ready man does. Excuse me. So as I've shared with you before, I have anxiety. I tell women, I've told women very early on in the dating process, I struggle with international travel. It's actually something I'm going to stop saying that, because in truth, the last time I went internationally, it wasn't that bad. But I share it just to open up that, and I think this was birthed out of COVID. I became an agoraphobe. I don't know if you felt the same way, but I became a bit of an agoraphobe after COVID. I wanted to be, my friends say I would like to be in my safe 5-mile bubble, but I'm breaking free from that. But I share that with someone just to give them some insight into who I am. Okay, number 2, he doesn't just talk about his future. He makes room for you in his future. He makes room for you in his future. He's not spouting about his 5-year plan while keeping you as a side note. If he's serious, he's saying things like, look, let's take a trip together this fall, or I'd like you to meet my closest people in my life. He's integrating you into his life, his plans for the future. By the way, I'm yelling just because I'm passionate, but he's opening you up to his life. He sees it beyond the days right in front of you, but the week ahead, a month ahead, 3 months ahead. He's thinking along those lines. That's a man who genuinely wants to commit to you. And if that's not happening and you've been together for 6 months, a year, 2 years, 5 years, ladies, let me tell you something. Let me interrupt my scheduled broadcast in the sense of what my notes say. Look after 3 months, if that penis is going inside the vagina on a vagina, is this Deadpool? If the penis is going inside the vagina on a regular basis, you have every right to find out, where's this relationship going? What do you see in a future? But sadly, many of you ladies have this over your mouth. Duct tape. And by the way, I recognize it's difficult to communicate our fears, but you know what? What I mean by duct tape is you're afraid that you will scare him away. Don't be afraid of scaring away, because the person who runs away is not your guy. By the way, if you've ever read my book, What the Heck is Self-Love Anyway? A Journey of Personal Development, Self-Help, Spiritual Work. Chapter 1, Speak Your Truth. Do it with kindness. Chapter 9, if it's sincere and from the heart, you can't say the wrong thing to the right person. I'm telling you, ladies, if you're having regular sex with a man, then just speak from your heart. If he runs away, he's not your guy. He's not your guy. Number 3, he owns his past without being defined by it. He owns his past without being defined by it. Whether it's a divorce, financial collapse, or grief, he's done the inner work. He's not still blaming his ex, avoiding tough conversations. He's integrated the pain, not projecting it. And by the way, folks, many of you know who followed me. I lost a child. By the way, there's a picture of Connor on his graduation shortly before he passed away. I don't hide my pain. I've leaned into it. I own it. It doesn't define who I am. I got wiped out in the market crash. It doesn't define who I am. Certainly those wounds on some level have helped me see things in a way that I couldn't otherwise have seen. But I am not defined by my past, and I will own my wounds. And a man who's genuinely serious about a relationship will do the same. He owns his past without being defined by it, and he doesn't blame his past relationships or his marriage on the other person. He takes ownership. And when you hear things like she was a narcissist, she was an alcoholic, she was a bad mother, I don't care if she had 90, maybe she had a majority to blame, even if it's up to 97%. If he doesn't take 3% ownership, and I like how Catherine Woodward Thomas talks about that, 3%, then that guy, he's blaming someone else and taking very little accountability in his life. Most likely hasn't done the inner work. Number 4, he prioritizes repair over being right. You know, here in the United States, we are suckling on the nipple of I'm right and you're wrong when there's a disagreement going on. A commitment-ready man, he doesn't ghost. He doesn't stonewall. He doesn't get defensive when the stuff hits the fan. He might flinch, but he comes back with humility. I'm kind of guilty of that. I flinch a lot, but he comes back with humility. And he might come back and say, hey, that didn't land well. Can we talk? That didn't land well. Can we talk? He prioritizes repair because he recognizes that humans have differences. Only an emotionally grown-up person can view the world this way. And I got to tell you something. None of you ladies watching are you this picnic either. I know you have the fantasy that you're above it all, but many of you are just as bad as men. You operate from a place of I'm right and he's wrong. And lastly, number 9, he's done chasing chemistry. I can relate to this one. He now chooses compatibility. He's not running on fumes or sexual attraction or fantasy anymore. He knows that deep partnership is built on shared values, blendable lifestyles, emotional maturity, emotional safety, and spiritual resonance. He's not chasing highs. He's rooted in something sustainable. He's done chasing chemistry. Boy, I think I chased chemistry a majority of my life. You know, when a relationship ready man shows up, he shows up grounded, steadfast, confident. Not fully confident. We all have fears and insecurities, but he's confident in the fact that he wants commitment. And yet, sadly, many of you are going, where are these men? Where are these men? Where are these men? Well, guess what? You're swiping left on a lot of these guys too, because they don't look handsome. They're not 6 foot tall. They're balding, they're pudgy. And many of you are still holding out for the Henry Cavills, the Mr. Biggs of Sex and the City, you know, the George Clooney's of the world. And let's face it, folks, for those of us over 45, we don't look like we did, but we seem to be dating with younger eyes. It's time for the wake-up call, and that's what this video is about. I'm not here to sugarcoat this shit. I'm here to say, if you really want a life partner, then you have to put some gigantic effort making it happen, because it's the most important decision you'll most likely make in your life. And if you need some support with that, I'll help you with that. By the way, did you find value in this conversation? Did this help at all? I'd like to hear your thoughts. Post a comment below. I do my best to read them all in the first 24 hours. As always, if you find value in my videos, please hit that like button. Please share this video. Please subscribe to my channel. Hit that notification bell so you can be notified of new videos. And if you want to connect with me directly, schedule a discovery call with me to see if working with a coach is right for you. There's links to join my group called Midlife Love Mastery. There's a link to follow me on Instagram. You can get the books I recommend. And also, scroll down and find my dating vows. This is essential conversations you want to have with someone before that penis ever gets inside the vagina, ladies. Go to that link, Dating Vows. I guarantee it will change your life.